Okay, here's a snapshot of everything that you need. So if you notice I'm using my salad spinner, it's because it's made of plastic. This is what you're gonna put your bread in, and you don't wanna use metal. So the reason I'm using this is because it doesn't have a lip, and the paper over here will stick to it better. So the plastic bowls with a lip, it's harder to get a seal on it. This is to microwave your water. You'll need filtered water, which is not in the frame. You'll need the fine sea salt, and then you'll need the olive oil. Your starter, of course, there it is. And then bread flour. So I think I got you some gold medal bread flour. That's what you'll be using. And then these little containers are how I measure out the salt and the oil. So this is kind of a side note. So I do 275 grams of water, and so the reason I put it in here is because I need to microwave it, but I'm not gonna microwave it right away. So I'm just pouring it out, and then basically once we are ready to go is when you're gonna microwave it, and you're gonna microwave it for 30 seconds. And according to my little laser temperature thing, it seems to be around like 115 degrees. And so by the time you get it mixed in with everything, it'll be like 105 degrees, which is perfect. I also forgot to mention with your starter, you're gonna measure it directly into the bowl because it's pretty much the first ingredient. So it's pretty easy if it's the only ingredient in here. If you end up pouring too much, you can usually use your stick or whatever you're using to pour it out to get some back in. All right, I think we're pretty much ready. I just microwaved the water, and it's at about 112, which you can't see. So that's perfect. We're pretty much ready to start. So I already have this in here. The thing is we're gonna need the scale to measure out the flour, so I kind of just do it all at the same time. So the first thing you'll do is mix in, here, I'm gonna use this stick. Mix in the oil with your starter, and I mean, it's gonna separate no matter what, but I do try to make it at least a little mixed together. That way you don't have big clumps of oil when you put the flour on, and it's kind of more just evenly dispersed throughout everything. You can use other tools to do this. I just am trying to avoid making more dishes. Okay, so I've got that. I'm gonna tear it with this in it because I'm probably gonna keep it in there for a while. So got that. It looks like, yep, our water is right around 105, so we're good to put it in. And just mix it a little again. That way the starter is mixed in with the water, which is mixed in with the oil, and everything is pretty even for when you put the salt and the flour on top. I'm sure it's probably a lot easier to do this with other equipment and not on the scale, but you know, whatever. All right, so that looks fairly mixed together. I don't feel any tough spots where there's still starter on the bottom. So I think it's good to go. So from here, I'm gonna tear it again and then start putting the flour in, and you're gonna put all 500 grams. Whoa, what is going on? Hey! Squeaks! I just chased him. Sorry about that. All right, we're getting there. That's actually pretty close because I did end up doing 275.5 with the water, and then I did 150.5 with the starter. So I guess even though it's a little off all over the place, it's off together. All right, so with the flour, you'll want to make sure your hands are washed for this part because this is where you're gonna mix it together. But first, before you mix it together, I kind of spread the flour out evenly throughout everything and then pour the salt on top of it. And then kind of like mix it around a little bit with my fingers. That way there aren't clumps of salt too in your bread. So it's just a way to like pre-mix it without dirtying a bunch of dishes. And I learned that from the milk bar lady. So she did that with a brownie recipe, and it's way better than dirtying dishes in my opinion. Okay, so this is where you mix it, and you don't use any tools for it. So I had to take my opening ring off, and it goes pretty fast. So it's not like you have to knead it for a long time. You really just need to get it all mixed kind of evenly together so there's no flour anywhere in the bowl that hasn't been like mixed with the water and the oil and the salt and all that good stuff. So I have found, because it's so sticky, a lot of times it's easier to just squeeze it together, and then that way you can kind of open your arm or your hand and it's not like a humongous ball there. But however works for you, I'm sure there's other ways to do it. And as I'm mixing, I'm seeing like little patches where there's still some oil that has not been fully mixed in. So when I see those, I try to pay attention to them and try to like disperse them a little more evenly. And when you're done with this, you'll want it to be fully mixed, but it's still going to be a really shaggy, sticky dough. Like, that's just how it is. But like, there's patches of flour underneath that I have not gotten to. Here's some water I haven't gotten to. So it's worth double checking to make sure you actually got everything mixed in. All right, so that actually looks pretty good. So I got that. Now I'm gonna de-dough my fingers, which is a little impossible, but just get as much off as you can. It will be very shaggy and sticky. So the goal at this point isn't to make a perfect round dough, it's really just to get it mixed together. Okay, almost there. I think that's about good. Sometimes I can get a lot off, but definitely not this time, so I'm just gonna give up. This hand is extra sticky and I don't know why. All right, that's pretty good. So now wash your hands and then cover it with the plastic wrap and set a timer for 30 minutes to 45 minutes. You can do either. Okay, so now that it has rested for 45 minutes to an hour, you're gonna uncover it, and then you're gonna take it out of the bowl and kind of mold it into a I guess a more pleasing shape. So it's obviously really rough right now and it's sticking to the bowl, so I usually use my fingers to kind of scrape it off the bottom. And then once you get it in your hand, it's really not too difficult. So you'll just basically do a folding movement, and you don't want to do it too much, but just enough to where it actually resembles bread dough, and you can kind of already see it happening. So once it looks pretty good like that, you'll just plop it back in seam side down, and then I'm just smoothing it out so it looks pretty, and then you'll cover it again, and then this time it'll be for 30 minutes, and then we're going to do a stretch and fold. All right, so it's been 30 minutes. So now we are going to do some stretch and folds, and we're gonna do 2 total. So all you do is you take one corner at a time and you kind of free it from the bowl and then stretch it out a little and then fold it over. And you're gonna do that on all 4 sides. All right. So now you will recover it and set a timer for an hour. And in an hour, you'll do the exact same thing. So just repeat what you did here. And then after that second one that you do, then it will do a bulk rise. So that is where you're waiting for it to puff up. And that can take anywhere from a couple of hours to most of a day. So if you can get it by like a warm window or somewhere where the temperature will be higher than, you know, 72 or whatever you keep your house at, then it should go a little faster. All right, it's time for the second stretch and fold. So same thing, we're just going to pick up the corner of it, stretch it out, and you can already see how much smoother it is when you stretch it. It's not tearing as much, it's just kind of going with the flow, and that is what you're looking for. Okay, last one. All right, so that's about it. So you can kind of make it look in a nice little ball again if you want, but it's gonna do what it wants as it rises. So now you're gonna cover it and not touch it, so it's just gonna rise for the next several hours. If you can find a window to put it by, or whoa, I had a spider on me. A window to put it by, or if there's like a warm spot in your kitchen, it'll rise faster. All right, so before we do anything else with the dough, we have to prepare what we're gonna put it in after this next step. So I have this, and that's what I'm gonna bake it in. So you could use the banneton, which I'm pretty sure I gave you one. And so all you'll do is lightly flour it and then put the dough in when you're done. Or if you have a Dutch oven like this, you can just put it in to rise. So I use cornmeal on the bottom of mine. just because it seems to do a good job of keeping it from sticking on the bottom. So the hard part is getting it evenly dispersed, but I do the best I can. And then when it comes out of the oven, I brush away whatever extra is on there, so it should just be a really light dusting. If you don't have cornmeal, you can use a spray or butter. You might get a darker crust doing that, but it'll keep it from sticking. All right, so now that is complete, here is what the dough looks like. So you can kind of see there's a bubble right there that's almost pushing all the way through. This is probably bordering on overproofed, but that is in general about what you're looking for when you do it yourself. So here, you're just gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour on whatever surface you're using. And you don't need a whole lot. You just basically need enough, oops, crap, so that it doesn't stick to the counter. That's pretty simple to do. I put a lot just now, but I've had issues with sticking, so I'm a little paranoid. All right, and once again, you're probably gonna have to scrape it out of the bowl. And it shouldn't be that difficult. Like you can see even now as it's pulling away from the bowl, it's like little threads, when before it was big chunks and it was a little more difficult. And you just want to make sure that it's about in the middle of the flour. That way you can kind of roll it around. So I'm using an oval baking pan, and you're probably going to be using round. So the only difference is that with the round one, you're kind of tucking in the dough all around. And with the oval one, you're kind of just pinching it like that. So let me make sure that's there. Okay. So this is my blob, and you just want to gently pat it so all of those humongous bubbles get burst. Oops. All right, and mine is going to be oval. So for me, the only thing that I'm going to be doing is kind of folding it in on itself. And then I'm going to basically tuck in the ends and push it under like that until it makes kind of a cute little loaf. So for you, you're going to basically do the same thing, but you're going to make it just round, and you're going to be tucking it in obviously a lot more around the edges. And it just, the goal of this is to just make it feel a little more sturdy, like it might be a piece of bread one day. So I think that's pretty good. There. All right, so there's my pan. I think I gave you a bench scraper. I don't remember. But we're basically just gonna plop this guy straight in there. So now that it's in there, I'm pretty much done with mine. So I'm gonna cover it, and then you're gonna wanna set a timer for maybe around 45 minutes to see if it has risen a lot. So mine is kind of taller rimmed, so it's a little harder to gauge, but if you have like a normal sized bread pan, typically you'll want it to actually be a little bit over the rim of the baking pan. So that's what's going to give you like the muffin top effect, but mine's too big for that. So I just kind of eyeball it to see about when it looks like it's inflated beyond how I put it in. So now that it has risen, you're going to be cutting it with this razor blade. I think it's called a lame. And so you can do it any way you want. Just make sure that you press kind of firmly. So like, see how it tore? So that happens when you're not sure of your direction, I guess. So mine usually end up looking like that. So you just want to score it before you put it in. So the oven is preheated to 450, but before we actually put it in, we're going to reduce this to 400. And then you're gonna cook it with the lid on for 20 minutes, I believe. So 20 minutes, and then you're gonna take the lid off and then bake it for 40 more minutes with the lid off. Okay, so it is out of the oven now. And so you'll want to, as soon as you can, put it onto a wire rack to cool. So you can see there's a lot of cornmeal on it. You don't have to worry about that for now. So just flip it over and let it cool off. And if you need to let it cool overnight, just put a kitchen towel over it and it'll be fine.